Well, I want to just gush a little bit on that hymn that we just sang a moment ago, Take My Life, God, Let It Be. It's filled with such great imagery and sort of like wishes and prayers about how I'd love it to be, how my life would be. And I wanted us to always to remember to not just settle for perhaps the sentimentality of these kinds of words and these kinds of prayers, and instead, if it just being sentimental, to take it on as a challenge, to realize that we are called to make a difference in the world. So maybe you can have a chance later to look through those words. They're great. But I want to ask you something. Do you remember many years ago, and I'm sure you can watch it on cable these days, a show called Touched by an Angel? I don't know if you remember that show. You know, I never really watched a full episode of that show ever. But I think the premise of the show was about the radical change of one person's life due to the appearance and the befriending of an angel. Now, here in today's text, the prophet Isaiah is in the presence of angel-like beings called seraphs. All right, so every once in a while we'll hear that thing, that's the seraphs, and we actually sang about seraphs in the first hymn. So we get a picture of what a seraph is. It's an angel-like thing. It's got 6 wings, and one to walk with, one to fly with, and one to cover the feet with. I don't know why they had to cover the feet, but anyhow. To be painfully honest, I really at first did not know the difference between seraphs and angels, quite honestly. The only difference, I think, is that seraphs are God helpers in the heavenly realm. But the angels, obviously, angels are allowed to roam between heaven and earth. So that makes it different. Now, unlike that show that I was talking about earlier, the seraphs are bigger than life. They had 6 wings, and when they spoke, what happened? The pivots on the thresholds shook. So their words were either great or they were really loud. Now, wouldn't that be nice if when you spoke, your words had greater impact than they do now? I don't know, maybe you have great impact with every word you speak. I know this to be the case with me, especially when Abe was growing up. We wished our voice could be a little bit stronger and more demanding. He's looking at me going, "What are you talking about, Dad?" We'd say things like, "Don't reach for things on the counter, that could be dangerous." Or we'd say, "Come on, honey, time for a new diaper." Oh, he hated that one, I know that for sure. Watch out where you're walking, kid. You might be walking into someone. Well, of course, the only thing that used to shake was his head back and forth when we used to tell him that. Now, these seraphs, they said some special words. Here's what they said. You heard it. "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory." You're going to have to say that in a second, so I'm going to say it one more time. "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory." Now, at first blush, it may not be such a fantastic thing to hear, but it is something that we might want to take a closer look at. Those words, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory." Now, the seraphs may have conjured up the might of God's brilliance in those words, okay? In the space of heaven, it's as if the act of praising God somehow resonates again and again and again until all manner of things will shake and quake and smoke at the mere suggestion of God's glory. That's the picture we're given. Now, we're going to try to say aloud, and I'll help you, that phrase, those 2 phrases, those 2 sentences, when they put them together. You know, let's face it, they had a great effect in heaven. You never know what's going to happen if we say them all right here. Now, I'm going to give you the first half, and then I'll give you the second half, and I'll say it first, and then you repeat after me, and then we'll try it all together, and let's see what happens and see if the pivots shake in the building, okay? So here's the first half. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Go. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Okay, here's the second half. The whole world is full of his glory. The whole world is full of his glory. All right, now we're going to say the whole thing together. You're careful. Mary Lawrence has her hands down here just in case, to keep her in case we quake and everything. Hold on. You may want to hold the front of your pew or something in front of you. Okay. Hold on. Take a hand or something. Here we go. Let's say it all together. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole world is full of his glory. Oh, there was a little quake right there. Thank you. Well, what do you expect? We don't have 6 wings. Ain't going to happen here. Let me tell you an old joke a while back about a woman who, she had heart trouble, okay? And she was only 40 years old. She has a heart attack. She's taken to the hospital, and while on the operating table, she has a near-death experience. And during that experience, she sees her guardian angel and asks, "Is this it?" And the angel says, "No," and explains, "You're going to have another 30 or 40 years of life to enjoy." Well, upon her recovery from the surgery, she decides just to stay in the hospital for a few more days, and she decides, "I'm going to have a facelift. I'm going to have some liposuction. I'm going to get a tummy tuck." Well, she even has someone come in and change her hair color as well. She figures since she's got another 30 or 40 years, she might as well make the most of it. So she walks finally out of the hospital after the last operation, and in an instant, she's killed by an ambulance speeding up to the hospital. She arrives in heaven. She sees her guardian angel. She says, "What's going on? I thought I had another 30 or 40 years. And the angel said, "I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you." Jesus recruits Simon Peter by the assurance in Jesus' words to once again cast out his nets into the deep water. Taking Jesus at his word, the nets are filled. The boats are filled. And Simon Peter quakes in awe as if the pivots of the boat have been shaken. And he says, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." Well, it's interesting how the impressions and the beliefs of cultures and centuries change our outlook on God. For Simon Peter, we're led to believe that he began to believe he was in the presence of someone who was either God or one of God's favored ones. In those times, to cast your eyes upon God would surely mean death. And Simon Peter didn't want God making any surprise visits when he was watching. Also, the importance of being pure when you went into the most holy of places in the temple, that was present in his mind as well. It's as if the boat had become a temple, and if this were God, Simon Peter knew he was not prepared properly to be in his presence. But for you and me, this idea of having to be cleansed or purified before being in the presence of God, it isn't a concern. It's not something we think about. It is our willingness, not our cleanliness, that God seeks. And though the eyes of the ancient Jews would have seen it entirely differently, the moment that Isaiah was touched on the lips with a burning coal was God reaching out to accept humanity and to empower us all, not just Isaiah. That burning coal touched to the lips was Isaiah's cleansing, and certainly for the Jews of that time, Isaiah would have forever been known as perpetually pure. Few of us are attended to by seraphs, so this is most certainly a holy man. Now, even though I say God wants our willingness and not our purity, I'd like to suggest a short exercise, okay? And I want to allow all of you to let your hearts and your minds experience that moment when the live coal touched Isaiah's lips. I want you to prepare yourself to imagine, to dream, to welcome seraphs into our midst. Allow me to suggest the vision. So folks, I want you to take a second, place your feet, both of them flat on the floor. I want you to close your eyes, or you can fix them on a special place, on maybe even the altar today. Okay. First, take a deep breath, long and slow, and then let it out. Take another in, and again, let it out. And in your vision, I want you to go to the temple. That temple that you think is God's personal place. I want you to imagine the decorations that you might think are in God's special temple. See God as whoever or whatever you believe God to be. Notice the seraphs. They hang gracefully in the air. And they're a peaceful presence, though their words do shake the foundations. Now I want you to watch one of the seraphs. See one flit through the air to the altar. It dances there before the altar in the air, and it gathers a live coal with a pair of tongs. And gracefully it turns, and the seraph flies towards you. And gently it reaches out with the tongs, and without fear, you allow it and the coal that is within to touch your lips with this live coal. In what ways might you be changed by this event? Just rest for a moment in that thought. Okay, take another deep breath and slowly come back to this room. As God's children, my friends, this live coal touches each and every one of us. All of us speak in the name of God, especially when we're gathered together. What will our speech then be? Because we know that we've been touched by this seraph, this angel, this live coal from the altar of God. What would it be like if our words shook the pivots on the thresholds of our society? What if the world was changed by what we spoke in all that we did? Or more appropriately, can you allow yourself to believe that what you say and do in the name of God and with God's will, not your own, to truly shake the pivots of our culture? Just like that day in the boat when Jesus told the experienced fishermen to drop down his nets yet again, even after they had fished all night and caught nothing. The fact that Jesus spoke in the name of God changed everything. Well, what about you? Allow yourself to be touched by God's presence. Allow yourself to be empowered so that your words, your actions can change everything. And that is what I will leave with you today. I pray that you hold that vision of the seraph touching your lips with a live coal. Hold that close to your heart. Don't be afraid to believe that God has chosen you or us to speak. Don't worry about that. That they will shake the pivots, so that when you speak in the name of the Lord, believe that all the boats will be filled with a great catch. And when someone shouts out to you that they are not worthy, may you reach out with your net of love or your live coal. Touch them. Gather them into love. Gather them into worthiness so that they know that they are worthy. Reach out with those tongs of the seraph. Touch their lips as you have been touched. We are a privileged and cared for people. It is our responsibility to reach out and touch the world, to shed oftentimes much of that privilege so that others may rise as well. My friends, may you be God's presence here on this earth, and may the boats all be filled. May the Lord be with you.